Welcome to Baby Loss Talk. I am your host, Janelle Adams, a fellow baby loss mom who created the show to help remove the stigma, shame, and loneliness of losing a pregnancy or infant by sharing real stories, advice, and resources. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Baby Loss Talk. Today I have Erika on the show, and she's going to be opening up about her journey through motherhood and loss and just whatever she's open to sharing with us. I'm just really excited for her to share this story because there are so many women out there who are struggling with multiple losses. So far on the show, we've only heard from women rather who have had maybe one or two. But I know that there are a lot of you out there that have gone through a lot more than that. And I feel that with Erika sharing her story today, that you'll realize that you're not alone. And Erika, if you could just go ahead and tell us a little bit about you, that would be great. And then we'll jump into your stories.
So I'm Erika of EssentiallyErika.com. I am a lifestyle blogger, mom, wife, friend, endometriosis survivor, and survivor of multiple pregnancy losses. So far, I've had 5. I've had 7 pregnancies in total, and I have 2 healthy baby boys that were conceived naturally and born, went full term, absolutely no problems. So definitely very, very blessed in that area. So I'm just here to talk about my journey and what I've gone through and what I know a lot of women have gone through. I've been married for 13 years coming up.
Wow.
Yes, it's been a long, long road. Actually, it goes by really quickly, but, especially getting tested and going through all of these things throughout the years and being there for each other and going through all of the tough times and walking through the hurt, as I'm sure you know, and many other women know, many other moms know. Mm-hmm. And so I was compelled to join and share some of my journey in hopes that someone else would feel comfortable hearing it. Not a lot of us talk about loss, and we don't talk about how we, especially multiple losses. Nobody really likes to talk about that. Nobody wants to have the hard conversations. And so I read a quote by Brene Brown saying that shame can't survive in the light. So yes, there's a lot of, I think, shame and I think almost guilt that moms feel and women feel, really all the time, but especially in pregnancy loss, because I think we as women feel that this is something our bodies should naturally be able to do. And when we don't get pregnant, I've been there, spent years trying to get pregnant or having difficulties getting pregnant. That can weigh on us heavily, as well as finally getting pregnant and then losing that pregnancy, which is a really, really tough, fall. So, and we'll touch on that more, I guess. But so I've had 7 pregnancies in total, 5 losses. I've had just about every loss you could imagine. I've had an ectopic pregnancy. I've had a molar pregnancy. I've had a chemical pregnancy. And they are also, the last one was a blighted ovum. So I've had pretty much and I've had just a regular old miscarriage. So, and I've had them early and I've had them a little bit later on. Nothing beyond the first trimester, which I know a lot of moms do go through. And one of the reasons I also felt compelled to do this was because it seems that the more you go through and the more that you figure out, the more people that you come in contact with, you learn more and more. And I don't know if it's just because of the world that we live in or what's going on, but I know that now more than ever, I've met more women, more sisters in loss who have shared their stories with me, and we've exchanged, and women are opening up and being honest about this conversation. And I love that.
Me too. And that's definitely part of why I decided to do this show is just because I remember when I went through my loss, it obviously I'd known that other people had gone through losses, but in that moment it felt like I was the only person that had, that was going through this. I didn't feel like anyone could relate to me. And so that's, why I decided to put this whole thing together, just so that we can see like, hey, like, not just hear stories, because sometimes it's like, oh, well, I know a friend of a friend of a friend, but for people to see us, like see our faces, see our emotions as we share our stories, and just really understand that this happens to the everyday woman. It's not a punishment. There's not like a certain group that it happens to. It doesn't matter what race you are, what economic status you're at. Like there's, we're all, unfortunately, we can all be affected by this in some kind of way. So my first question is, let's go back to your first pregnancy. Okay. Was that a miscarriage, or was that one of your now living children?
So that was so the sequence I had it in, that was an ectopic pregnancy. And we had only been married about, I want to say a year and a half, and we weren't trying it, but I had gotten off of birth control because they suspected I had endometriosis, and we were in the testing phases trying to figure out, do I have it? Don't I have it? And so they encouraged me to get off of birth control and assured me that I probably wouldn't get pregnant if I had endometriosis. Yeah. So no worries, you're probably not that fertile. And in 2 months I got pregnant. So much for that. We weren't expecting it, but we were married and in love, and we were happy. And, we had that excited feeling that only a positive pregnancy test can bring you, of hope and love and excitement, and about, all of this hope for a new journey that you're going to be on, and, right. And the unexpected, because I didn't have children yet. So it's a different feeling of, uncharted waters and trying to figure it all out and navigate it. But at about 6 weeks, I just didn't feel right. I didn't really feel pregnant. I think
Yeah, the first few weeks, it's like, I know there's a pregnancy test that says it's positive, but I don't feel anything different.
I kept, I think women have markers. We all know our body. We all know when something's going a certain way. And one of the things that tipped me off is I can't sleep. I get insomnia. Mm-hmm. That's a surefire sign for me that the pregnancy is not viable for some reason. I don't know why. But when the pregnancy is viable, I sleep like a log. There's nothing I can do. I can't stop sleeping. So it's almost torture, because when I do get pregnant, I start to question myself, and that's something that comes after loss, I think, and we can touch on that later. But I would wake up and wonder why I couldn't go back to sleep. And then I wound up having a little bit of spotting, wound up in the ER. They didn't see anything. I felt like they rushed a diagnosis. They were nervous because I had pain on my side. Mm-hmm. And so they just rushed me in and told me, mind you, I'm 25 years old at this point. Mm-hmm. And they just tell me, we're just going to open you up. We've got to take out your entire right side, your right fallopian tube, your right ovary, and, you're not going to, don't worry about it. And you'll have children. You're young. One day you can always do IVF. And they were a little insensitive about it, and I was panicking, but it was an emergency, and my poor husband was sitting there waiting, and I'm going into surgery. And when I woke up, they couldn't find anything in my tubes, but the pregnancy was already absolving itself. So they had given me a DNC and then gave me a shot of methotrexate to make sure that my body would get rid of it. Mm-hmm. But so I went to sleep pregnant, and I woke up and everything was sort of over. And so that was definitely a tough experience to get over.
What's that like mentally?
That at such a young age, for me, what affected me the most were that doctors were so nonchalant about it. Mm-hmm. And it was just, it felt rushed, and it felt like they weren't sure what was going on, but they went ahead and gave me a DNC anyway. Mm-hmm. And I felt out of control. Mentally, I felt completely out of control. It'd been the first time. I'm a type A personality, or was recovering type A.
Yeah.
And so I felt the need to control everything all the time and plan everything and make sure everything was perfect and just right. And so we had names picked out. I mean, it was only 6 weeks, but I literally started.
You're a planner, like me.
Yes, I
totally.
started a baby registry. So yeah, I knew nothing about pregnancy. And so I wound up just feeling really out of control. And then feeling the need I was really young and not completely in touch with myself. And so I didn't know the amount of compassion I needed to give myself, and I didn't. So I just moved on and I threw myself into work. And then it became a matter of, okay, well, I think when you lose the pregnancy, there's this instant rush of wanting to get that back again.
Yeah, that was my next question. I was going to ask you, like, did you feel like, okay, like now I need to get pregnant again, like right now, like we need to start trying?
Yeah, because you want that. It's like a feeling, you feel special, you feel chosen, you feel blessed beyond measure in ways that, you're about to experience this miracle. And then when that's ripped from, like the rug is just ripped from beneath you, it's a cold feeling and it's a lonely feeling. And you just want that, euphoric feeling again. You want that high that you were on when you saw those 2 lines on that test. And so you go forward and you try to, we decided to leave it alone for a little while, let my body heal. And then we wanted to start trying, because at that point it was almost 2 years, or had been 2 years. And I said, okay, well, I didn't think I was ready before, but now I think we're ready. And so that was the point where we tried and tried and tried tried without trying. We tried in a way where we just weren't preventing. Yeah. I wasn't at the point where I was like checking my temperature or doing anything like that.
Checking like your ovulation cycle and all that.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I have friends who've experienced that, and that's another battle in and of itself. The POAS crew and the TTC ladies, I'm with you. I've been there, ladies. I know. So, scouring the community boards and seeing what women are up to and their basal body temperature and listening to their stories. I think that was also one of the things. I threw myself into listening to other women and their stories in whatever online forums I could find. Yeah. And then I was told that, we were probably going to have problems conceiving. I had some scar tissue from the DNC. I was battling endometriosis. And it was probably, so my first pregnancy was in 2006, and I didn't get pregnant again until 2009. No, 2008.
Okay.
Yeah, 2008. Sorry, it's been a while. And that was, we were just at the point where the doctors were telling us, we think you should try IVF. They'd written out a plan for us and told us what they needed. And we just I was really like annoyed with the situation and disheartened. And so we wound up getting pregnant shortly after that diagnosis. And it was another miscarriage. Yeah, that was another miscarriage, which was tough.
Yeah. Yeah, because at this point you've had the miscarriage already. Then it's like all these years of trying and hoping and probably like getting a little sad when your period shows up. Like I've been through that, where it's like, you're kind of sort of trying, but not really. It's like you want to try, but then there's like part of you that's like, don't really get your hopes up just in case kind of thing. So there's this like internal battle going on. So then get pregnant again and lose again.
So that goes on inside of you. I just want to touch on that for a second, because for me, I felt it like if I would get my period at a time I was trying, I felt betrayed by my own body.
Yep.
And I think there's that grief that women battle inside of them, where it's like my body's not doing what my heart is just longing for, and my heart and my body can't get on the same wavelength.
Yes.
And so I started to feel like I didn't want it anymore. I didn't want it if it didn't want me. And that was, I think, that's, I think, just protection, because you're afraid. I was young and afraid to be vulnerable and feel whatever I was feeling and just go through it. But when I found out I was pregnant that second time, that first, there was that excitement, but there was also that afterthought of, I really, I had to take my prenatals every day at the exact same time. That guilt kicks back in. Maybe there was something I could have done. Maybe there was something different I should have done. Maybe I shouldn't have taken. I remember thinking the silliest things like, I took a wheatgrass shot one day when I was pregnant. Why did I do that? What if that has some, you will talk yourself into every single scenario possible. And at the end of every scenario is guilt. Guilt. So that didn't, work out too well. But I ended up having just a natural, regular miscarriage. I'd gone to the doctor. They didn't see anything in the uterus, and they felt like it was already absolving itself. And I decided, because I felt so out of control the first time, that I was going to take control this time. And I refused the DNC. And the doctors told me, you'll never be able to do this at home alone. And I said, watch me.
Wow.
And so I did. I went home and I stood home for a month waiting to miscarry. So that was a long, long, hard battle.
Yeah, what is that like mentally? Because I've never been through that kind of loss where I'm just like waiting for the baby
so
to pass. I mean, are you working at this time? Are you?
I was off of work, actually, out of work, which made it worse, I think.
Yeah, because then you have nothing else to think about except.
Yeah. I worked in construction for many years, and I was a project manager. And this was 2008 when everything crashed. And so I had just been laid off from my job, like I think 2 months before this. And so I wound up going home and thinking, okay, this is going to happen. I better prepare for it. When it didn't happen after a week, you start to think and wonder and scour the internet and look around and see. And I found that there were groups of women who were writing saying, the doctors are saying no, but I had this miracle pregnancy and they just couldn't find the heartbeat. And here goes like hope and wonder.
The internet is like the best and the worst thing that can happen to like a pregnant person, or just going through like loss, or even like when you have like living children, you can
torture.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy. Like, and there's a forum for everything too. So
it really is. And then paying attention to every little detail, reading every little thing. It's really hard to hear that your pregnancy isn't viable and your breasts are killing you. And that's nausea you just experienced today. That's one of the things that I think is the hardest parts about finding out about a pregnancy not being viable, is that it's hard to walk in that room and sit there with that wand and wait for that. I know the feeling of waiting for that ultrasound technician. The poker face is real with an ultrasound tech.
Yes.
And it can come off as really insensitive sometimes, but they see this all day long and they know what they're looking for and they know when it's not there.
Yeah. And it's so funny you mention that, because every time the pregnancies I've had after my loss, that is literally what I do. Like when I go like lay down, I'm like staring, I'm just like looking like, is she like making like any like weird faces? I'm just, because it's like you stop breathing until you hear that heartbeat, and then you're just like staring at the tech trying to see if there's any indication, just so you can like mentally prepare in case like worst case scenario,
there's no way to prepare. That's why I think sometimes you disconnect. Like after that miscarriage, I definitely That was the hardest, because one of the hardest, the last one, my most recent, was definitely my hardest physically, but that was one of my hardest at that point, because I had to do it at home and I was waiting so long for it.
Yeah.
And then when the bleeding started, it was like, okay, at least there's some closure, and I'm glad that I let my body do what it was made to do naturally, you know. And even though there's this back and forth where you feel betrayed by your body, or, you know, forsaken by your body, and I went ahead and I miscarried at home in the tub. I went through 6 hours of contractions, and it was like an actual, you know, terrible experience. I don't recommend it, but I think there was a part of me that almost felt like, if this is karmic, I want to go through it. And I want to let's just wipe the slate clean right here, right now. And the things you can think of in your mind when you're experiencing these losses, multiple losses especially, it's really boggling how you can take this on and think that it's something that's happening to you, instead of something you're just going through and walking through and learning a lesson, or sharing in a way to make other people feel connected to you, or understood, you know, by other people. So that was a tough one.
And okay, so at this point you've had 2 losses. Have you gone through any like grief counseling or therapy or anything?
No, I didn't. Like I said, I didn't know myself well enough. Back then I was still really young and just trying to do right, and, you know, always trying to, I grew up with a perfectionist as a mom, and so I had this thing where I always just wanted to do the right thing. And that never really works out. So,
yes, learning that.
I just kept skipping on through stuff. I've been strong. I dealt with loss before in my life, and so I've always shrugged everything off. My dad died when I was 14 years old, and so I always figured, if I could survive that, I can survive anything. So this was one of those things where I was just like, life's tough, life's hard. You know, I learned that lesson really young. It can be cold in the streets, so keep moving, keep going. I remember at that point, the doctors wanted to do all kinds of testing. And they wanted to start poking and prodding, and I had just been done. I had a laparoscopy done for my endometriosis before that procedure. And so I was done with the poking and the prodding and the testing and the tubes and the blood work. And I literally told my husband, I don't even want to hear the word baby.
Yeah.
Don't even ask me if I ever want a baby. Don't even say, don't even call me baby. I said this in 2009, and I said, I don't even want to hear. It was the end of 2009, and it was September, and I said, I don't want to hear the word baby until next year. We'll talk about it next year. And I got pregnant on January 1st, 2010. Well played, universe. Well played.
Universe is like, well, you said next year, so next year.
Wound up getting pregnant. My husband had booked an all-day spa for me, and he took me we had tickets to the theater, and he took me to a fancy dinner, and it was my birthday. My birthday's January 1st, and so it sounds cooler than it is, and and so I was relaxed. I wasn't thinking about it, and it just happened. And that was my firstborn. My little firecracker, my surprise, my little war baby. So that was my first pregnancy. It was all natural, 0 complications, but full of anxiety.
Yes. So that's what I was gonna ask you to touch on next, is because loss is challenging, and then it's like, you want to get pregnant, but then you don't realize how mentally exhausting pregnancy is after loss. So what was that pregnancy like for you, just mentally? Like how did you deal with getting through those 40 weeks after 2 consecutive losses at that point?
For me, it was very stressful, but on a level where it's almost like you feel like you can't be in alignment with what you really want. You can't be honest about what you want, because I put up this grief wall, or this protection from grief, just like, I don't want to get pregnant, I don't care if I get pregnant, whatever, it doesn't bother me, you know. And then and afraid to be honest about it. And then when I was like that, I got pregnant. So there's these mixed messages that you get, that you're like, oh, I don't want to. So you psych yourself out in a way that you're like, okay, everything's going to be fine. Everything's fine. Just don't worry about it. But you're worried about every single appointment, every single twinge. If I didn't feel him kick enough that day, or if I didn't sleep enough that evening, or I remember, I think I had insomnia once during that pregnancy, and it was like way later, and I just thought, oh, no, you know, like, this can't be happening to me. I went to the doctor the next day, and there was a lot, everything feels so urgent. I must have been to the ER in that first pregnancy twice.
Yeah.
In the first trimester, just because I felt a little crampy.
Yeah.
Or and they would just do an ultrasound and check, and I'd see it, and then I'd breathe and then go home. So it feels a little bit like the joy has been stolen from you.
Yes.
And instead you're placed with this burden of fear and learn, and you can't just relax and enjoy the pregnancy.
Exactly.
It didn't last the entire pregnancy, but each stage came with its stress and anxiety, and then maybe like this tiny pocket of, this is going to be good, this is going to work out great. And then the second trimester, and it's like, well, you know, now these are all the flags for the second trimester.
Yeah.
So
it's like each, you have like in your mind these like certain markers where you feel like, okay, if I hit this one, I can breathe a little bit more. If I hit this one, I can breathe a little bit more. But it's kind of like you're just not breathing the whole time, you know?
That's exactly what it's like. It's like holding your breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Something must go wrong. Right. When you deal with, I think, the grief of multiple losses and constantly losing, and you're losing something you so desperately desire and want, I think that you get this sort of, not just jaded, where you think that you just feel like you expect to lose. And so that's where it gets, you know, it gets deep and it gets hairy and it gets ugly. But I will say that I wound up finding peace. I remember hitting this one, it was, I'll tell you the marker in the pregnancy it was. When I had read in whatever, What to Expect or Baby Center or whatever was online, I had read somewhere that said, your baby could survive outside of the womb at this point. And that's when I went, all right, we're good to go. And not that that's, you know, ideal, because I've met babies born at 24 weeks, 26 weeks, 30 weeks. My brother was a preemie. One of my close friends' son was born at 24 weeks. He was a micro preemie. It's not ideal. It's not what you want for your child. But at that point I was like, I'll take anything.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And it's funny you say that, because my daughter was born just before the 24th week, and she didn't survive too long after. But I've met people who were born at that, or children that were born at that time, and some are fine. And then I meet others that, you know, they might have like cerebral palsy, or, you know, just different things, and kind of like on like a really, I don't really know if I'm going to word this correctly. But sometimes I'm just like, that would be okay with me, you know, if I could just, whatever condition she would be in for me to have her, I would be okay with that.
Yeah.
You know? But then it's like, I have to separate myself, like take myself out of the situation and be like, you know, well, she's in there's nowhere better than where she is right now. You know what I mean? So sometimes there's this like back and forth. Like I did this March of Dimes walk, and I met this little girl that she was born on Jolie's birthday, like same week. Like she was She was a 23-weeker too. And I just remember seeing her and I was just like, oh my gosh, like that could be, you know, that could have been my baby too, you know? So there's always these moments that, you know, you're just like, I would just anything, whatever I would have gotten, like I would have been okay, you know?
Yep. I get the question all the time now because I have 2 boys.
Mm-hmm.
Are you gonna go for the girl? Do you want the girl?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want a girl? I know you just want a little girl. And it's like, I wish, if there's one thing I could really get across to people, mm-hmm. is that when you're talking to someone who's dealt with loss and does not take pregnancy, motherhood for granted, mm-hmm. we care less about what it is that we have. Mm-hmm. We even care, like you said, we will take anything. I've even stopped myself from saying, I used to say, I just want a healthy baby. And it's like, mm-hmm. you know what? I just want my baby. I don't care mm-hmm. how that happens or what that looks like, because it's not that I wouldn't want it if it had something, you know, some sort of a defect or deformity or a disease that needed to be managed or cared for, or it doesn't matter. Want my baby. It doesn't matter whether it's a boy or a girl. I don't feel like I'm missing out in life.
Really, like, stabs me in the heart because that was my only little girl. Because I have, like you, 2 living boys. So when people ask me like, "Oh, are you gonna try for a girl again?" It's like you might as well just take my heart out and stomp on it, like, you know. But I guess people just don't realize.
They don't.
Hurtful.
It's well-meaning, but
yeah,
I think that's a part of the conversation. That's why people need to talk about these things. Right. We need to have the tough conversations, because I wouldn't have known that before losing or having children, right. You know, mm-hmm. losing my and that understanding. And I don't say that to other people because I know for me it really doesn't matter. I'm not missing out on anything because I don't have a daughter, or, you know. My boys are everything to me because they're mine and I love them. And if I had 4 more boys, I would be just as excited because they're mine and they're, you know, they're just all mine to love on. So it doesn't really matter. But I think at that stage, people, you know, they just want a peek into what it is, into your family life and what it is that your dynamic.
Which is so strange. Like, a lot of these questions, they're just like such like lazy questions, you know? It's like, can you just like ask me something like cool about myself? Like, you know? Like, why do you want to know when am I having another baby or if I want more kids? Like, do you really care? I don't think so.
It changes. Every day it changes. So I swear that I'm done and I'm like ready for my husband to get a vasectomy, and then I go somewhere, I see a baby in my uterus.
Exactly.
So yeah,
my husband and I, after our last little boy, we were like, yeah, we're done. And then recently, he's about to be 1 in like 2 weeks or so. And now my husband's like, oh, you know, well, maybe I'm like, no, sir. Okay? But then I don't know, maybe next year I might be like, well, you know what, I only have a certain amount of time left. Maybe we should just like try one more. I don't know, who knows?
I sort of like the uncertainty in ways that it's like, it's going to happen if it happens. And I think that's because of how it happened for me. It happened very naturally. Mm-hmm. Both of those times for both successful pregnancies, because my oldest was only 6 months old when we found out I was pregnant with my youngest.
So you had 2 living children back to back.
Yeah. Okay. So that one was a much, I will say this, it was a much lighter pregnancy.
Because now you knew that you could do it.
Exactly.
It's this weird thing.
And I was like, this is fine. It's going to be fine. I just went through this and I was really calm. And I kept getting questions like, are you scared? And I mean, even from my husband, because when he found out that we were having another baby, our little one was only 6 months old, he went like catatonic for like a week. And so he was really nervous. But I had a really strange, calm feeling wash over me. Like, it's just going to be all right. And I would just get questions like, oh my gosh, are you scared? Or, oh my God, this is terrible. This is so unplanned. You're not prepared. And what are you going to do? And I was like, I've never, and I remember even my mom going like, this is scary. They're so close together. And I was like, at that point, I'd lost 2 pregnancies. There is no way that I'm not going to be excited or happy and joyful. Like, I knew I'll take whatever. If I would have had triplets at that point, I could care less. I have a healthy, happy pregnancy. We're going to stick with that and ride that all the way through. And that was honestly a great pregnancy. It just went really fast because I had a little one.
Mm-hmm.
I had, Evan was 15 months old when Nathaniel was born.
Wow.
He wasn't even, and then he was a late walker. So
you had like 2 babies.
Yes, in 2 car seats going to and from the car.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, but it was a good experience. It definitely, now that I've experienced all of these losses, I tell you, I look at those 2 faces and I'm just in awe with those little warriors, because I'm like, I've got a pretty tough womb there.
Yeah.
You guys you are the cream of the crop. You know, you guys did really, really well. They're just, it's so evident to me that they're miracles more and more, you know, each day.
Yeah. And so after that, then you had 3 more miscarriages, is that correct?
Yes, 3 more.
Okay.
When Nathaniel was 2 years old, I got pregnant. My youngest was 2. I got pregnant unexpectedly, and again, my husband went a little, he was like shocked. He's always shocked. I don't know why he's shocked. He's always shocked.
Yeah, it's like, you know.
You've had how much practice with, how many times? I've told you I'm pregnant 7 times. Can you get it right 1?
It's like, okay, like, you were there too, okay? Like, stop me.
Yes, why are you? You know those YouTube videos of men finding out that they're about to have a baby, and they're the most tear-jerking, wonderful, touching moments, prolific videos where it's just so fast. That's not how any of my pregnancies, any of them. They were all like blooper reels. They're all terrible in their own right, but I love them anyway.
Oh my
He's just do well with that news. He's gonna kill me for saying this.
That's hilarious. Well, I'm the opposite. My husband always tells me when I'm pregnant, and I'm always in he's very strange. Like, for example, Jolie was our first. So with him, he just used to look at me, and I remember he just looked at me one day, he was like, "You're pregnant." I was like, "I've never been pregnant in my life. Like, get out of here." You know, and I was like on a cleanse. I was, vegan. I'm like, I'm getting my summer body together. Like, over here, and he was like, "No, you're pregnant." I'm like, "Okay, whatever." And he's like, "Okay, just take a test." And I took it, and I really was pregnant. And
wow.
I was just like, my reaction was, holy shit. And he was like doing cartwheels around our apartment. And then with Grayson, same thing again. I was on another cleanse.
Stay away from those cleanses.
I know. I was telling someone yesterday, every time I go vegan or I'm on a cleanse, I get pregnant. And same thing with him again. And he's like, "You're glowing." I'm like, "I am sweating because I just came from the gym. Like, I'm not glowing. Like, stop it." And same thing again. I was pregnant. The third one caught us both off guard. Valentine's Day was a little too turnt last year. That one caught us off guard. So that one he didn't tell me. But yeah. So mine is. I'm usually in our situations. I'm like your husband, where I'm like, "What's going on?" And
I'm like, "Can you not?" I'm like, "Thank goodness I never record you." It would go viral, and they'll be like, "He didn't want that baby." No, it is pretty funny. He's told me before, like, "Shut up. No, you're not." I'm like, "You're ruining this for me."
Oh my gosh. So tell me about, like, how has your marriage been impacted by these high highs and low lows? Because you guys are unfortunately losing pregnancies, and then thankfully you're able to have these two beautiful little boys. So I'm like obsessed with seeing on your Instagram. And you go through, you know, 3 additional losses after that. What is that like on your marriage?
It's been a journey. So when you start at the beginning, when you're dealing with multiple losses in a marriage, when you start at the beginning, it's uncharted territory. Nobody knows how to handle it. And the first time it happened, it sort of like bridged a gap between us.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't know how to handle me, and I just wanted him to get closer to me. And I think men shy away from that when they're young and they don't really know how to handle such deep, deep stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So the first time around, he didn't know how to, neither one of us knew what to do. I wasn't self-aware enough to say, I need to be held right now, or I just need you to be here for me, or, you know, I need to just cry or do any of that. By the third loss, I had figured out how to self-soothe. And I told him, I mean, I remember like sending out a message, even in the second loss, I sent out a message to family and friends one day when I knew it wasn't happening, when I started bleeding, and I said, here's what's going on. I just want to let you know, but please don't contact me for a few days. Like, I just need to process this, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I just needed to be sad. And that's one of the things that I think that we need to allow ourselves to do, is to just, it's sad, but I've almost become a pro at it. I know what my body needs. I know what I need to do. I've learned to listen to my body and just be sad, walk through the emotions. I don't want to skip over it. I don't want to miss any of it. I just want to really walk through it and experience it and allow it to flow through me so none of it sticks with me.
And that's very important, because when you do try to skip it, it could be 5 years later, 10 years later, even if you go on to have living children, if you didn't go through that full grief process, it will sneak up on you at the most random time. So I'm really happy that you allowed yourself to feel everything, you know, whether it's sadness one day, anger one day, denial one day. And sometimes it's all of those emotions in 1 hour, you know?
It's down to science for me. It's first day, it's just, I'm sad. I'm a little angry. I just really need to cry when I want to cry and be sad about it. And I write, you know, I've figured out, you know, that it's best to write for me. That's just my way of letting stuff working through things.
Here for me. Mm-hmm.
And so after I write, I put on some fuzzy socks and I put on a shirt that a dear friend of mine sent to me that says, "You are enough." Yes. Miss Lindsay Poveromo Jolie.
Oh, I love Lindsay. She is so sweet.
I love Lindsay to death.
Yeah.
Yes. And so she, in my, I want to say in my third or fourth, it's sad how many I'm going over, but third or fourth miscarriage, she had sent me a shirt that said, "You are enough." It's a beautiful t-shirt. And now that's sort of like the shirt that I rock when I get low in my feelings. You know, I'm all in it and I'm processing stuff. And so, in my most recent one, I put it on, and then I know by day 2, I'm ready to start emotionally eating. I will not shame myself at that time for diving into a pint of ice cream.
Listen, grief looks different for everybody. The timeline's different for everybody, so you just have to go through it.
To answer your question, my marriage has become, this most recent loss was the hardest physically. I did end up in the emergency room. It was just a regular miscarriage, but I had lost way too much blood, and so I was blacking out, and it was a dangerous situation. So I had blood deficiency, and I had to be rushed to the ER. And my husband was there by my side, but he was there with me in the shower. And this one, for some reason, was a lot more graphic, sadly. And so he was. There's something about that man that holds you up. The shower while you are miscarrying the baby that you made together. And so this ties you in and bonds you in ways that birth does. It's the same thing. Grief, birth, death, it bonds you and ties you in a way. He held me. It was a really crazy moment because in all of my pain and everything that was going on, he held me from behind and stood behind me to help support me.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember him holding me that way in labor with our oldest son.
Mm.
And so it just like, it's just, it all comes full circle for me with him. And he's held me like that a couple times in our marriage. And it's all been in either, like I said, grief, death, or, birth.
Yeah.
It's amazing how the way that you became one to make this life is the way that you become one to walk through and to I don't want to say dispel, but to pass through this life and to allow this life to pass through you. So it was definitely an experience that this last time drew us a lot closer, but each time solidified, because it's something we have to get through. And when we look at each other and say, wow, we've been through a lot together.
Yeah.
But that's also part of the reason that our bond is really strong, because when you come out of the other end of something like this and you've seen each other and you've heard each other and you've acknowledged each other, then you learn from each other, and then you're able to be vulnerable in that way with each other. And he opened up a lot more. This last miscarriage, he's always been really strong for me, but this last one I think hit him even harder than it hit me, because it was hard on me physically and emotionally, but way more physically this time. And for him it was a lot harder emotionally. And I think for him it's because he had come to some terms where he was deciding whether, he said to me afterwards, I think we need to have some conversations about what we see our family looking like, whether we should just take matters into our own hands. He said, because I don't want to see you like this anymore. And I had to take that in and understand that I haven't been the only one going through it. He's also been walking through this with me. So it's definitely brought us a lot closer together and showed us what each other's made of in that way.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful that we survived it. I'm sure that there are many other experiences, but I'm grateful that we've handled this type of struggle together really well.
Yeah. And so I guess to wrap this all up, what words of encouragement, or I don't know if encouragement's the word, or what would you say to the woman out there like yourself who is miscarrying, pregnancy after pregnancy after pregnancy? What could you say to that woman to keep her going? Maybe not even necessarily to keep, not maybe not necessarily to tell her whether or not she should keep trying to have a baby, but just as a woman, like, what could you say to her just to keep herself uplifted as she journeys through all this, this journey? Really is what it is.
My best piece of advice is not always the easiest, but it's what I've learned after all of this time, is to surrender. Just surrender. Anything that is meant for you will come. And whatever you are walking through and whatever has come onto your journey and whatever has come onto your path and is there for you, just pick it up and keep going and surrender to what you know to be true in your heart. Align yourself and your body with what your heart desires. Speak only what your heart desires. Don't allow all of this to separate because you are afraid of being vulnerable. Own it, wear it, talk about it, because shame can't survive in the light. And there should be no shame, no guilt. This doesn't happen by any fault of your own. I've had perfect pregnancies where I I did everything I could. I took my prenatal at the same time every single day. I did everything the doctor told me to do and then some, and still lost. It doesn't matter. It's beyond our control. And I've learned that from doctors. I've seen countless doctors over the years throughout these experiences telling me, at the end of the day, doctors will send you home after that ultrasound and say, if you pray to someone, or, I don't know what else to tell you. It's out of our hands. We have to see how this works out. So my best piece of advice is to definitely surrender and just walk through everything, feel everything, be compassionate with yourself, love yourself, and give yourself exactly what you need to walk through this. Because on the other side of that is going to be whatever you needed to take from this experience, whatever you needed to learn from the experience is only going to come to you when you're open and available to it. And so if you can surrender to all that's happening and just allow yourself to be vulnerable and be honest with yourself and to love yourself and be compassionate and take your time with yourself. Like I said, I've learned to, on day 2, I'm like, I need ice cream. I need a bowl of just keep loving yourself and showing yourself that compassion, because self-compassion is the biggest part of being a compassionate person, because you can't give someone else what you don't have. And if you can't love yourself in that way through the hard times, then you're missing the biggest part of the journey, which is the lesson and walking through it. And don't be afraid because it hurts, and don't be afraid because it's hard. In vulnerability is your strength, because I haven't talked about it. I haven't been able to just say everything. And lots of people, some people have been there on some parts of my journey and don't know my entire journey, and they don't know what I was thinking or going through. They may have been in my life at the time, and coworkers and friends, and not understood what I was going through. But I've learned to just surrender, accept it. It's a part of my walk and what I've had to go through, but it's also made me who I am, and I'm really grateful for that. So
that's amazing. I'm like over here, I don't know if you saw me, like white. That was really powerful.
Oh,
and you're gonna bless so many people with that, because there's so many women just, no matter how many losses they've had, they're just beating themselves up, or just feeling so alone, or just
you are not alone at all.
Yeah.
So many of us, and my next piece of advice would be to talk about it with women. I just went on a trip to Vermont and sat at a table with a couple of other bloggers, 6 or 7 other bloggers I'd never met before, and 4 out of those 6 had experienced pregnancy loss, and we all sat talking about it.
Wow.
It's the one thing that we don't talk about, but 1 in 4 women goes through it. And if we talk about it, there'll be education about it. And there won't be a need to scour the internet looking for information. You'll be able to talk to your doctor, your nurse, your friend, your mother, your aunt, anyone who can just hold you, even when you're not feeling strong and when you're not feeling so self-compassionate. And they can just hold you and do it and be there for you. So share it.
Yeah.
when you're ready.
Yeah, and just connecting with other women too, like you were saying. It's amazing how like you can meet a stranger, and because you have this one thing in common, it's like it's like you found your person, and you just like latch onto each other and form this amazing bond. Like, I can't tell you how many women have become my close friends simply because we've gone through loss. And whether it's, like my friend Melissa, who I believe that's how we met each other.
Yes.
Literally, I met her on like Instagram or something. And then, and then I went to her blog and I saw her story, and I was like, I'm like, this is my sister. Like, I know her, And then we met up at an event, and we've been really cool ever since. And and now she's like my great friend, But it's just
sister-in-laws instead of sister-in-laws.
Exactly. Like, I have so many sisters-in-laws, where because if I say something to you, or I say something to Melissa, or you know, any of my other friends who've gone through loss, there are things that I can say to you that I can't say to maybe someone who I've known for 15 years because they've never been through this. So I might say something to you that makes complete sense, and you'll know how to be there for me because you've been there too, and vice versa, you know? So it's like sometimes it's like it's easier for me to express certain things to my sisters in laws than it is to, you know, someone I've known my whole life, because you get me, you know?
We've been there. There's a connection. It ties us all. And that's why I think when we're vocal about it, we allow women to see that they're not alone, and that they have sisters, and it is a sisterhood. And I've met women who took pregnancies for granted, multiple pregnancies for granted, and just lived their lives and didn't really care, or didn't, you know, never really was into what was happening to their bodies, never present while this was happening. And I think the one thing that this has also taught me is that it's taught me to be really present and to really embrace the experience and to appreciate motherhood on a different level. There's a wonderful organization I do want to say called, if you follow on Instagram, I Had a Miscarriage, and it's hashtag I Had a Miscarriage. And I love what they do. It's a great, you know, outlet and forum for moms as well, women who are going through it, and also support for women who are now pregnant after a loss, and they're rainbow mamas and they have rainbow babies. So that's a wonderful thing. So I think it definitely draws us to each other and allows us to connect on a different level. And it happens to be a very deep and personal level.
Yeah. It's like you go from, hey, my name is such and such, to, hey, so that time you had a miscarriage, you know what I mean? It's like these
war stories. I shared like gory details with these women who, you know, and I haven't even told some family members like how deeply it affected us. So
absolutely, yeah, I can totally relate to that. Tell us where to find you all over the internet so everyone can follow you. And
okay, I'm all over the place. On Instagram, I'm at Essentially Erika. That's Erika with a K. And then also essentiallyerika.com. And on Facebook, it's the same handle. But I'm just, you know, I'm really grateful for this opportunity to be able to share my story. And hopefully, I know that there are a lot of my readers that I've touched on some of this stuff lightly, but I haven't totally, because I'm still also waiting on results and trying to find out where I am and what I want to do in my life. So I haven't shared as openly as on my blog as I have here. But I just want to say that, you know, we are all one. So we should be able to share with each other and bring each other into the fold on these different levels, not just in loss, but in life as well. And to be able to really embrace each other and share all of the good as well as all of the really tough, hard stuff, and be there and hold each other up when, you know, someone else is going through it. I remember, like I said, when I was going through it and I got something in the mail, and it was that t-shirt from Lindsay. It just, she wasn't here and she wasn't home with me, but I felt a really big, warm hug from her, because those little things matter, you know. And I'm going to be sharing soon on the blog. I'm working on something where I help to guide people on how to handle the woman who is miscarrying or had an infant loss in her life, and dealing with little things that you can do here and there to say the right thing or not say anything. It's okay to not say anything at all and just hold someone. And just, I'll be sharing some more. So keep following, keep reading. I'm going to still try and stay positive and encourage you all to walk through the good stuff and walk you through the hard stuff. And I want to thank you for being, because you are one of my love warrior heroes. So your story is so inspiring, because while I've experienced multiple losses, I'll never understand the pain that you've gone through. And I know, and I have multiple friends who've gone through it. And I always say, I couldn't even imagine. So I'm always in awe at your strength and your courage and your wisdom. And I'm just so grateful for you, and I appreciate you and all that you do.
Okay.
So keep sharing.
All right, let me grab my little thing over here. I was really trying not to cry.
All right.
No, but thank you for that. No, that's awesome. But no, I'm just actually really inspired. I know this is gonna turn into like a mush fest right now. I'm really inspired by you. I'm just very like touched by your words, and I can't wait for other people to watch this episode or listen, because I don't know. First, have you done like any speaking? Like, you really need to like be out there. You put words together in such an eloquent way that I can't, and just your words of encouragement and advice, it's just so like, you're like piercing me through the heart, like this whole time.
Sorry.
No, this is great.
This is wonderful.
I've been like trying not to cry this whole time, but I'm just so honored that you decided to do this. You know, like you said, you haven't necessarily shared all of this publicly, so I am grateful that you trust me enough to provide, you know, a safe space for you to do that, for you to open up. And you know, I know your most recent loss wasn't that long ago, so I know you're still processing, and it's a lot.
It is, but you know, it has many faces, and that's what I think we need to understand, is that I have pictures, and I've thought about this. I have pictures of myself where I'm like, oh, I was miscarrying there. Mm-hmm. You know, I had just started, or I was still bleeding from my miscarriage there, and some of these pictures are me in a park with the kids smiling. Some of these pictures are not that way. I took a picture and I shared it with another blogger friend of mine, and I'm considering sharing it because it's really raw.
Yeah.
And it was this last miscarriage, and it's all in. It's like right after it's happened. Wow. And it's raw as raw gets. And so I don't know why I did it. I never do that. I'm not that person. It's like taking a picture of me at every stage of my life, but I'm not even a selfie person. I don't like selfies. Yeah. If you look at my Instagram, you'll notice that. That's one of my biggest complaints from my readers, is that they don't see me in front of the camera, but behind the camera. But I've considered posting it because I think that the face of miscarriage has so many different faces. Mm-hmm. There are times where you don't know what women are going through. It's a silent struggle sometimes. And so it's got a lot to do with understanding where we are in life and where we want to be, but it's also respecting where we're at and meeting that wholeheartedly. And so we'll see. Well, I'll keep sharing. You keep sharing.
Keep sharing. I'll be reading, and of course I'll, link to all of your websites and all your social media and everything with this episode. But I can't thank you enough. Thank you. This was amazing. I can't wait to see the response to this episode, because I know this is one of the most powerful episodes yet, if not the most. Wow. Because you just have so many jewels that you dropped in this episode,
Thank you.
So thank you so much. Thank you so much to everyone who's watching. Please comment below with your thoughts on this episode. If you want to tell Erika anything, I'm sure she'll jump in the comments too.